2, 3, 4.
Not too bad.
Matthew Kelly is my special guest here, and he was right at the forefront of that kind of late 60s, early 70s blues phenomenon that came out of America. Tell us some of the people that you actually played with.
Well, T-Bone Walker was the one that I had the greatest reverence for, because when I went on tour opening for B.B. King, and B.B. King said, "Look, I'm not the king of the blues. The real king was T-Bone Walker." The problem with T-Bone was the big push with blues would start with the big promoters. That came later, and T-Bone passed away before that, so he didn't get as big as B.B. King,
right.
But he would have had he lived.
Yeah. And that was in San Francisco, right?
It was in the San Francisco Bay Area, down around Santa Cruz, all the way up to San Francisco. Yeah.
And there was a massive scene there, wasn't there?
There was indeed, and the blues was not a big part of the San Francisco scene as much as all the other stuff. Jefferson Airplane, Moby Grape, Grateful Dead, all those kind of bands.
The kind of psychedelic rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what got you into blues in the first place?
Well, for some reason I was really drawn to it from the time I was young. I started listening to an all-black radio station called KDIA, and they played stuff like Bobby Blue Bland and all this great stuff. And I got to play with a lot of the people I was listening to when I was young, which was like such an honor to be able to play with these guys.
I was going to say, it must have been a great thrill to be in amongst all these people.
Well, it would be the same as if you'd been invited to play with the Beatles, because that's what they were to me. They were the people I idolized more than the rock people.
Yeah. And what actually got you started? What was the band, or who gave you the big leg up?
Well, this is ironic too. I started listening to Jimmy Reed and Brownie McGhee and Sonny Terry, and later on I had the great opportunity to play with Brownie McGhee, because Sonny Terry is a harp player and they just do a duet.
Yeah.
And so I got to record with Brownie McGhee, which is something I'm working on here to get finished.
And did you get spotted by somebody? Did somebody see you? And
well, how it all happened, actually, that's an interesting story. I went into a club, an after-hours club in East Palo Alto, which was the area that is very dangerous for white people to go there. And anyway, I went in there, and it was an all-black after-hours club, and they were doing a slow blues, and I figured out what key they're in, and I, uninvited, jumped up on stage and started playing. You just don't do such a thing, and I was really kind of a shy person, but I did that, and Mel Brown, who was the guitar player for Bobby Blue Bland, who was, I think, one of the greatest blues singers of all time, said, "Hey, listen, I'm driving down to Watts to do an album, and I want you to come with me." So we jumped in 2 days later, we jumped in his Cadillac, drove down to Watts, and I lived with him for a month.
When you jumped up on stage there, I mean, that was the big pivotal moment, really.
Absolutely. I was so terrified, but I did it anyway.
but what was it that urged you to do it? Because you said you were a shy person.
Well,
but did you think, I've got to grab this opportunity?
I've never been much into alcohol. So I had a couple glasses of wine, and I don't know, something came over me, and I just did it, and it changed my life. Because it was through Mel that I met T-Bone and Shuggy Otis and all those other blues guys.
Yeah.
That was the connection to the whole Chitlin thing that I ended up doing.
But then you started your own band, Kingfish, which became very well known in the States.
Yeah, we were quite big. For a period of about 3 years, the Grateful Dead had taken a hiatus, and Bobby Weir came to join us. We were a quartet before that. And our keyboard player had an unfortunate accident, so we could never replace him, and then Weir came and joined the band, and so we were Rolling Stones said we were the biggest band in America without a record deal. So we were drawing really big audiences and didn't have a record out at that point.
Yeah, so I mean, the blues rock scene really came to fruition in the 70s, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And in Kingfish, that's what we had a prodigy guitar player, a guy named Robbie Hodnott, and he was amazing. And my partner David Torbert, he was amazing. So we just had this chemistry in the sound, and then when we were joined, that added a whole nother dimension. So we were really getting amazing audience response.
Now, harp playing, I mean, obviously you've got to work in with the instruments, but do you work around the vocals as well? What's going through your mind as you're playing?
Well, I try not to step on the vocals, and a lot of harp players sometimes overplay, and I try, if anything, I sometimes I underplay, or I do like what we just did in there. I try to do rhythmic things and get in with the rhythm section, because that can add a really nice effect, especially if you've got the right tone.
I mean, the reason we're looking sweaty is because we've just been recording in my studio.
That's right.
And it's always great working with great musicians, and it's fun to hear how somebody else interprets something.
No, absolutely. And I feel so honored because I've had the privilege of playing with people I've idolized, like the Neville brothers, they had, and all these different great bands that had that groove, and there's a whole bunch of them, so too many to mention, and so it's been good.
So what happened to Kingfish? Because I mean, you were really big for quite a while, weren't you?
Quite a while. Bobby Weir went back to the Grateful Dead. David Torbert and we signed a record deal with ELO, and we toured opening for ELO.
Wow.
All over America. And then we went on to Great Britain and toured with Ritchie Blackmore, not Deep Purple, but Rainbow.
Yeah.
And that was a long, grueling tour.
Really?
About 5 months, every major city in England, Scotland.
And when you were on that tour, did you realise how lucky you were to be doing something like that? It was afterwards when you look back on it and you think, wow. At
the time, I was so, it all seemed I was just trying to, it was hard to take it all in.
Yeah.
And we even did a show with U2, and they opened for us. They were just getting started. But yeah, I have no idea what we sounded like in those days, because the band went, we had a major change in personnel, and we had some other great players, but it wasn't the same sound. We sounded more like a little bit more like a southern rock band when we toured with ELO.
Right. Yeah, because there was an element of country to what you did.
Yeah.
There was a kind of mixture, wasn't it, of different styles?
Yeah, well, Torbert and I both played with the New Riders of the Purple Sage, which was country. It was basically Torbert and a guy named David Nelson, and Jerry Garcia was in that band for a little while, and then they hired a real professional steel player from Nashville.
Yeah. So. I remember the story that Jerry Garcia gave you a guitar, which you had here in Pattaya.
Yeah.
So I had to go on it quite a while ago.
Yeah. It was what they call an Olympic guitar, and all of Jerry's the guitars he played towards the end of his career were all made by this guitar maker in San Francisco, and
they were very special.
Amazing instruments.
Amazing.
That particular one I had was not the best of the guitars, but the other ones were outstanding.
Yeah. Okay, so after Kingfish, what happened to you then? What direction did you go in?
Well, let's see. It's hard to, because during all this and before and interspersed in all this, I went out and played what they call the Chitlin circuit. I went to the Midwest and the South and ended up in New Orleans and played in all kinds of in all black nightclubs. There was no white people whatsoever. And
how did they take to you?
Well, they were great. The black audiences were great. I had the problem with white.
I guess so long as they see you've got the chops, then
Oh, they treated me like a king. I was. The problem I had was, especially in the South, was with the whites. I don't know if I heard the story, but the Ku Klux Klan is down there, and they're still active in this period. And I had, I was threatened with
Really?
a pistol put in my mouth.
Wow.
Saying, in this part of the country, you don't, white kids don't play with blacks. And it was really, intimidating. And
It was a crazy time, wasn't it?
yeah, and it's still going on. It's not to the level it was then, because this was back in early 70s.
Yeah.
And especially down in Texas, Louisiana, and all that.
But you say that even today there's still an undercurrent.
Yeah, sure. You can.
Yeah. Oh, I bet you must have been thinking, why did I get myself into this music scene?
Well, yeah, eventually, I was playing with this incredible B3 player, this black guy named Johnny Carswell, from.
That's like a Hammond organ.
Yeah, and that's what you met Chuck and Patty, and Patty was in that band for a while, and then Patty dropped off, and so I went out with him, and played all these places in Indiana and Kentucky, coal mining towns and stuff. But finally, we had to go our separate ways because it was getting so dicey with the threats and stuff. And then I ended up in New Orleans, and it was the same thing, only different.
Did the touring ever get tough and boring, or was it just stressful?
I think it was stressful, and there was times when I felt like, I'm not sure if this is really the right choice for me in my life, because I was always, I've said this before, I was always attracted to a healthier lifestyle, and being on the road is not the healthiest lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's hard to eat properly and get exercise, and it's just a grueling thing. So
yeah, plus substances that might have been around you all the time.
Yes, that was a major factor, and to be honest, a lot of my good friends are no longer with us, and that has always been a great source of sadness for me, because it's just unfortunate that happened. And
Sure. Did you find any other interests, or was it always music that you wanted to do?
Well, the last band I was in was a band called Rat Dog with Bobby Weir, and we had a great drummer, and we had a stand-up bass player, Rob Wasserman, who played with a lot of greats, and it was just a quartet. And although we added different people along the way, not the least of which was Johnny Johnson, who played with Chuck Berry, one of probably the best blues keyboard player around. That was a lot of fun. But finally, I told the guys, I said, look, I've had enough, and I quit. And I moved to Hawaii and got involved in other things, and then ended up here in Thailand.
Well, that was going to be my next question. What actually brought you to Thailand? I mean, this whole world could have attracted you, but places in the whole world. But why Thailand?
I had been delving into philanthropic enterprises even before I moved here, flying back and forth. So it became my primary focus. So we finally, my wife and Mary, who's not here today, but is here with me in Thailand, we got involved with starting this foundation, in which we've been doing for on and off for, I think, close to 20 years now.
I was going to say, it became a passion.
Yeah, that has been. And I think it's also been my saving grace in a sense, because it's just a very healthy thing to get involved in. It's very fulfilling.
I mean, that was the thing. Is that the motivation? Is the fact that it's kind of like a karma thing?
Well, yeah, you can put it that way. For me, it was it became my primary focus. And music, I just let music go for about 10 years. I even stopped playing guitar. Now I play every day. But for a while, I just didn't want to even have much to do with music. And
who have you really helped? I think it's more of the people in the north of Thailand. Is that right?
Well, we work all over, but I think that our primary, right here in Pattaya, we work with Gun Michai, with Cabbages and Condoms, and in some of his enterprises. But our primary focus has been in Kanchanaburi, called Children of the Forest.
Right.
And that's still going.
Forests have played a big part in your life, haven't you? Because you had an album which you did all about, was it
Sundown on the Forest?
Sundown on the Forest.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because
that was also an epiphany, I guess, a life-changing event, because a song was written called Sundown on the Forest, and the lyrics were just amazing. And I was in my car, and I heard this interview of Julia Butterfly Hill, who was this incredible woman who lived on top of a redwood tree for 2.5 years on a small platform, almost died. And so
What was her point? What was she trying to prove there?
Well, she was trying to save the old-growth redwoods, which are, the oldest growing things on the planet. But she did save the tree that she was up, was called Luna, which she saved. And so that was essentially, that changed my life, because I went down to Hollywood and got this thing called the Genesis Award, which I don't know if I really deserved it. Anyway, the song was dedicated.
Somebody thought you deserved it.
Well, anyway, it was dedicated to Julia, and so that was, that's really what kind of was one of the things that really motivated me towards my philanthropic enterprise, probably more than anything else at that time.
Okay, so you came to Thailand, and what kind of fundraising events did you do, or how did you raise the money to help these people?
That's always the challenge with any philanthropic enterprises. And so, at first you just, I organized a few benefit concerts, and my old pal Bobby Weir from the Dead, he did a couple of shows that helped raise some money. And then, and eventually, my father, who's had a very successful business in the airline business, anyway, he started a foundation and started funding us, because he really started believing what we were doing, and so that was our major source of funding for a long time. That's no longer the case anymore.
Right.
So
you have to find other ways now.
Yeah, we're kind of struggling with Children of the Forest these days, because with everything that's going on with COVID and everything.
Sure.
So
yeah.
it's not the same.
It's difficult for everybody.
Yeah.
And how do you see your future now? I mean, you're here in Pattaya. You've got a few very good musical friends here.
I do.
And what are you working on now?
Well, I've got this collection of recordings that I've had started in 1969 with some of the all-time great blues people, such as Sunnyland Slim, Luther Tucker, who was a guitar player for Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, Barney McGee, all these greats. So I owe it to them and to myself to get these things finished and get them out there. And they're this close to being finished.
Yeah.
So,
but that's going to be quite valuable. But also, I think people are there's going to be a lot of interest in that.
Well, I hope so. There obviously these guys have recorded. They have a lot of recordings out there, but these are different in ways that it's hard to explain at the moment. Every song that I record will have some dialogue story to go along with it, because it's not just these guys. And then it's kind of complicated, because besides the blues guys, I've got all the influential Bay Area bands, like people from the Starship and the Jefferson Airplane and Moby Grape and some of those other Quicksilver. Anybody that knows Bay Area would know those bands.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, what an interesting life.
Yeah.
Would you say when you look back on your life, what has been the big high point for you? That's a difficult question, because there's probably so many.
Well, it is a difficult question. I answered this once before on the other podcast, and it's hard to say what the most difficult. I mean, the highlight of my life. But I'd have to say that having saved a guy's life in Mexico was pretty dramatic, and it changed me in ways that I can't even describe. It was actually a miracle, because he was clinically dead.
Really?
Yeah, he was under the water 20 feet. I went down. He fell one of those parachute rides, and it fell out. He couldn't swim. Big black guy. And he was dead. We got him back on the board. We were pounding on him, and no life. And finally, everyone thought there was no hope, but we brought him back to life, and the rest of the story is pretty miraculous. I think I'll say that.
Wow, yeah.
But anyway, it's that, having done something like that, when that happens, is pretty monumental.
Yeah.
And it's very moving.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Yeah.
describe, really.
Yeah. And finally,
Nothing to do with music.
what is it about Pattaya that that draws you here?
Well, I've lived all over Thailand, and I'm here in Pattaya primarily because we've got a great recording studio here that we're working out of, and there's great talent here. This is I think the primary reason for me personally, and it's different for everybody, is that there's a lot of creativity and talent, yourself included, people living here. So
I try.
you do a great job, and so I think that's the primary reason I'm here, because we have a place in Hua Hin, which is really beautiful, a lot of nature, but they don't have the facilities and all the talent
That's it.
here that they have here.
You've got everything here, haven't you, really?
You do, indeed, yeah.
Well, Matthew, thanks so much for coming to my house here, recording with me. How about you see us out with a nice little musical piece on your dobro?
Okay, well, I'm just going to play it, just fool around and play a little bit.
Yeah. Let's put the microphone down there like that.
Just like...
Fabulous. What a great sound.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.